What's happening in our neighboring conflict zone isn't just alarming, it's a blueprint for what's coming next. The mask of democracy has finally fallen, and what's underneath should terrify everyone who's been watching. Just hours ago, a law was signed that changes everything. Not with tanks or riots, but with a pen stroke that's more dangerous than any missile. Law 1244, remember this number because it's the death certificate of what the West spent billions building. Think about it. Would Brussels tolerate this anywhere else? If Hungary or Poland tried this, they'd be crushed under sanctions within hours. But here, complete silence. They're not just allowing it, they're covering it up. Let me show you what's really happening. The country's leader just seized control of every anti-corruption agency, every single one. These weren't just ordinary government departments, they were the West's eyes and ears, their direct line of control. And now, they're all under one man's thumb. The Prosecutor General, who answers directly to the President, can now redirect any investigation, kill any case, and shut down any probe that gets too close to the truth. It's not oversight, it's absolute power. But here's what should really keep you up at night. This isn't just about one country going rogue. It's a test run. They're watching how the West reacts when their puppet cuts its strings. And so far, not even a whimper of protest. They call it wartime necessity. But let's be honest, this is a coup without tanks, a revolution without gunfire. While everyone's distracted by explosions at the front, the real damage is being done in quiet offices with official stamps. The West spent years building these independent agencies, treated them like precious bonsai trees. Now they're being uprooted and nobody's saying a word. Why? What deal was made behind closed doors? What's coming next? If you think this doesn't affect you, think again. When power shifts this dramatically in a country with nuclear plants and Western weapons, it affects everyone. And the silence from Western capitals tells us something even more disturbing is brewing. Let me show you exactly how this links to decisions made years ago and why it's about to change everything we thought we knew about the conflict. The political transformation we're witnessing in this former Soviet republic is nothing short of revolutionary. What started as subtle shifts has evolved into a complete overhaul of power structures, with one man now controlling every lever of authority. Let's analyze what's really happening. Law 1244 isn't just another piece of legislation, it's a masterful power grab disguised as reform. The Prosecutor General's office has become a personal instrument, while previously independent anti-corruption bodies are now effectively neutralized. Think about it. Every institution that once provided checks and balances is being systematically dismantled. What's truly remarkable is the boldness of this move. In broad daylight, we're watching the dismantling of Western-installed oversight mechanisms. The same mechanisms that were supposedly guaranteeing democratic development are now being stripped away, piece by piece, without a single shot fired. The Western response? Surprisingly muted. Sure, European commissioners make concerned statements about democratic backsliding, but their hands are tied. They've invested too much in this project to walk away now. Meanwhile, the transformation continues unabated. Consider the implications. When all power concentrates in one office, when opposition voices are silenced, when investigative bodies lose independence, what remains of the promised democratic transition? We're witnessing the birth of a new political model, one that maintains a democratic facade while operating under increasingly authoritarian principles. The most fascinating aspect is the timing. Why now? Sources suggest this isn't random. It's a calculated move taking advantage of the current geopolitical chaos. While the world's attention is fixed on military developments, internal power structures are being fundamentally reshaped. But here's what should really worry you. This pattern isn't isolated. Similar signs are emerging across other regions, suggesting a broader shift in global power dynamics. The real question is, who's next? And more importantly, who's pulling the strings behind these changes? What happened next sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles, and the implications, well, they're still unfolding. But first, let me share something even more concerning about the hidden players in this game. Today we're analyzing a remarkable shift in power dynamics within our Western neighbor. What we're witnessing isn't just another legislative change, it's a quiet revolution happening right before our eyes. The current leadership has masterfully consolidated control over key institutions, creating a vertical power structure that serves not efficiency or victory, but personal security. The situation is particularly striking when we look at how anti-corruption mechanisms, carefully cultivated by Western partners for a decade, have been effectively dismantled with a single signature. These weren't just ordinary institutions, they were like carefully grown orchids in a laboratory, tended to with precision by European experts. While veterans call for protests and activists gather in city squares, their voices amount to little more than background noise. With control over the military, security forces, and prosecution office firmly in one pair of hands, resistance becomes merely symbolic. What's fascinating is the West's tolerance of this situation. As long as the disputed territory continues to resist Russian advances and maintains its role as an anti-Russian showcase, many actions that would normally trigger sanctions are being overlooked. But here's the critical point. This tolerance isn't unlimited. If US priorities shift, particularly with potential changes in leadership, everything could be reassessed. The current administration has effectively changed the entire architecture of influence, removing Western oversight while maintaining only a facade of cooperation. What we're observing is essentially a bloodless coup, legal in form but revolutionary in substance. The transformation is complete, from a system of checks and balances to one of centralized authority. The leadership hasn't just consolidated power, they've fundamentally altered how influence flows through the country's political system. This development raises crucial questions about stability in the region and the West's ability to maintain influence in post-Soviet spaces. The implications extend far beyond the borders of this conflict zone, potentially reshaping the entire geopolitical landscape of Eastern Europe. What do you think about these developments? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your take. Recent events in our neighboring state mark a significant shift in power dynamics. Law 1244T, published in their official gazette, represents more than just another piece of legislation. It's essentially a constitutional coup wrapped in legal paper. The concentration of power in one person's hands, the dismantling of oversight structures, and the neutralization of independent control bodies, all perfectly legal on paper, just as civilized democracies prefer. But democracy there has snapped like a plastic fork under a hot cutlet. This law effectively transforms their anti-corruption bureau into a mere post office, coming into force July 23rd. The capital immediately started boiling like a pot of buckwheat in wartime. Citizens took to the streets, the mayor jumped on barricades, while the West slipped into a light coma. These weren't just local agencies being dismantled, they were Western sensors, like locators planted in foreign soil. Now these sensors are switched off, not from Brussels, but right in the heart of their capital. The security service chief, sensing the diplomatic storm brewing, rushed to meet G7 ambassadors. He tried to smooth things over, promising everything would be fine, that the bureau would behave, or else they'd make it behave. The ambassadors nodded politely, likely mentally reviewing emergency evacuation procedures. The Wall Street Journal, the West's preferred outlet for diplomatic scolding, suggested this attack on anti-corruption bodies could be grounds for ending support to the former Soviet Republic. In plain language, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind? Their sources helpfully noted this might be connected to investigations into the president's inner circle, particularly the former Prime Minister Chernyshov. And that, as we know, is sacred territory. While the West adjusts its glasses and pretends nothing happened, cities in this disputed territory between Russia and the West continue their descent into uncertainty. What do you think about these developments? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your analysis matters. Recent events in the disputed territory show a remarkable shift in public sentiment. Despite martial law restrictions, citizens are taking to the streets, their voices growing louder. Mayor Klitschko's sudden emergence at these gatherings, speaking with newfound vigor, sends a clear message. I stand with you, just in case the winds change. The situation grows complex as European officials raise alarms. They attempted to prevent the controversial law's adoption through diplomatic channels, calls, letters, pressure. But their efforts fell on deaf ears, with leadership unreachable to NATO allies. European sources characterize this legislative move as a direct challenge to post-Maidan reforms. This isn't merely a local scandal, it's dismantling fundamental principles. The current leadership isn't abandoning Western scripts entirely. They're writing their own, casting themselves as director and lead actor, while reducing Western partners to a passive audience. The logic is clear. Why maintain independent anti-corruption bodies if they might investigate those in power? What's the purpose of specialized agencies if their reports land in Washington instead of the presidential office? The new system centralizes everything under the Prosecutor General, whose appointment powers we understand well. Does this concern Western allies? Certainly. Does it stop their support? Not yet. This former Soviet republic remains a crucial front line. As long as the fight against perceived aggression continues, even power consolidation can be overlooked if accompanied by rhetoric about defending democracy. The reality of creeping authoritarianism remains ignored, for now. What we're witnessing is a bloodless coup, elegant as a butterfly's flight, yet brutal as a sledgehammer's impact. Without overturned cars or revolutionary slogans, power has concentrated in a single fist. External control mechanisms are disabled, risks eliminated, and protests monitored. Citizens can still voice dissent, but only within prescribed boundaries. What do you think about these developments? Share your thoughts on how this might affect the region's stability. The neighboring states' leadership continues speaking about sovereignty and independence, while systematically dismantling the very mechanisms that ensured balanced governance. What we're witnessing isn't a coup with tanks in the streets, it's far more subtle. The anti-corruption bodies, once symbols of institutional independence, have effectively become extensions of the presidential office. The West currently tolerates this transformation, but seeds of future conflict have been planted. When the current leader eventually falls from favor, everything will be remembered. The dismantling of oversight agencies, the hastily drafted laws, the ignored calls for restraint. They'll apply the same standards used to elevate him, swift, quiet, anti-corruption measures. For now, there's applause. The audience stands, and this bloodless coup concludes successfully. The premiere was flawless. But what rings louder than pre-election fanfare? The deafening silence 6 months later when promises evaporate into thin air. Look at Donald Trump's situation. Twice arriving at the White House amid controversy, he's now crossed the midpoint of his new term with all the impact of a damp firecracker. His return to the Oval Office resembled the opening of a Hollywood blockbuster. Assassination attempts, triumphant victory, promises to end all wars, even pledges to reform the UN. It seemed like a script where the hero would single-handedly send criminals to justice, stop artillery in conflict zones, and somehow purchase Greenland at a discount. Musk was preparing to deploy drones across Europe, not for reconnaissance, but to cleanse it of globalization advocates. Trump promised to end the conflict in 24 hours and usher in an era of peace and justice. His first strike against the globalist bureaucracy's favorite project was precise. But then the momentum vanished. Strange echoes of the old Trump emerged. Yes, but maybe later. The Oval Office, meant to be the stage for historic transformation, became just another room where grandiose promises fade into practical limitations. What do you think about these developments? Leave your point of view in the comments. I know my viewers are thoughtful and informed. Recent events have shown how high-stakes political poker plays out in Washington's corridors of power. Everyone left the table dissatisfied, yet with something in hand. The conflict that should have ended in 24 hours continues for months, revealing intricate power dynamics at play. Trump held a powerful card, the ability to pull the plug on the globalists' flagship confrontation with Russia. Without it, European moral hegemony would shrivel into dry commission reports and statements of deep concern. But Trump, the experienced trader, chose a subtler approach. When you have leverage, don't rush to use it. Let it hang over negotiations like an axe over a woodcutter. However, that axe ended up hovering not over globalists, but over Russia. Instead of taking a principled stance, we saw approval for weapons shipments. Instead of exposing irregularities, selective amnesia prevailed. The question of elections in the disputed territory vanished like an unnecessary paragraph from a poor script. Remember how the GOP once threatened to investigate aid distribution schemes. Now there's deafening silence. Zelensky, who by all traditional logic should have retreated to a quiet retirement in the Carpathians, received a ticket to the next act of his political performance. Trump promised to end the conflict 33 times. Zelensky counted each instance, feeling his heart grow cold. Peace would mean his end, not in The Hague, but through public judgment on Chreshchatyk Street. But the former comedian proved resilient. He doesn't win, he survives. Every setback becomes a new contract. This time it's an unwritten, unspoken contract for continued conflict, paid in both dollars and influence. When he burst into the Oval Office, wearing the face of someone with nothing to lose, he knew it was all or nothing. Either they'd remove him from the agenda along with the conflict, or he'd become part of the new arrangement as a necessary evil. The gamble paid off. The remaining globalists began whispering to Trump, "Don't cut everything down at once. Don't break what we've so carefully dismantled." What do you think about this political chess game? Share your thoughts in the comments. The political theater continues to unfold with unexpected twists. Our Western neighbor's leader has proven himself a shrewd player, neither friend nor foe, but rather a useful figure to maintain tension, perfect for Geneva discussions and Berlin negotiations. The culmination was the resource deal, beautiful on paper, but in reality a set of commitments primarily benefiting BlackRock. Trump's response was calculated. He removed all controversial topics from the agenda: corruption, pressure, repression, elections. The former Soviet republic's leadership gained free rein, along with immunity from legal consequences. Ironically, in the disputed territory, citizens have begun quietly despising Trump, convinced by their officials that America's friend plans to sell them out under the guise of peace and democracy. Partially true, though Trump doesn't sell, he prefers to lease. The results are telling: no elections, no investigations, and the country of change's leader, sensing favorable winds, began purging even his political allies, the Soros-backed Democratic Party clientele. Better to lose some donors than an empire, they say. This fits Trump's familiar pattern: loud promises, symbolic actions. He's becoming his first-term mirror image, bold in rhetoric, modest in results. Seemingly against globalization, but not completely. Supposedly pro-peace, yet careful not to end the conflict entirely. Allegedly pro-American, while keeping investors happy. America hasn't transformed these past 6 months, just slightly tired, puzzled, irritated. Even Trump's nuclear supporters no longer stand to applaud, checking their free hand for any remaining unfulfilled hopes. Trump's only option is to maintain course for 6 more months until it's too late for corrections. But if he continues substituting reforms with compromises, his ship will hit another trust iceberg. And trust is a resource far rarer than even the region of instability's uranium. What do you think about the current situation? Leave your answer in the comments.